Cool. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another lecture here in the BFP network. I'm excited today to speak about habits, establishing powerful habits. And I would say a lot of the concepts that I'm going to go over here are concepts that have helped me identify the habits that I need to establish for myself, for my business. What's up, Drew? For myself, for my business, and everything else that corresponds to the aggregator, the summation of success in my life, right? We are all starting out at a specific point of our lives, and it doesn't end there. Obviously, there are a lot of things that we must do to continue to put ourselves in a position of power, to continue to put ourselves in a position of increasing and improving our success. And I want to go ahead and share the psychology behind it, the mindset behind it, and how you can manipulate yourself to establish better habits, because a lot of the times it's subconscious, right? There are a lot of things that we tend to do that we don't necessarily even know that we're doing it a lot of the times, and it leads to certain things and certain experiences that then we ask ourselves, man, why am I here? It's the new year already. Am I just going to make another New Year resolution and expect everything to just plan out better than last year, right? No, you have to take this as a conscious step and develop habits that are going to continue to propel you to success. So I have a PowerPoint here that I want to go ahead and share with you guys to go over step by step exactly what it is that I want to dive in deeper with you guys in. All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. Cool. Can everybody see my screen? Just give me a thumbs up. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and start this up. All right, cool. Establishing powerful habits. What are habits? So I pulled up a definition just so that we can all be on the same page, right? I know this is an easy question to answer, right? A settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. Some habits may be so automatic and ingrained that you'll likely do it without even being aware that you are doing it. It's kind of what I mentioned earlier today. Example, biting your nails, your body language when you enter an unfamiliar room, fidgeting when nervous or bored, going to sleep late so that you can avoid the pain you believe to be greater than the result of doing what needs to be done at the time it needs to be done in, right? And in the end, right, in that last one, that last sentence, I wanted to go ahead and expand that so that you guys understand what's happening beneath your awareness, right? A lot of the times, let's say, for example, with the habit of waking up in time, you may think that you have a problem getting up at a certain time, but it's not that you have a problem getting up at a certain time. It's the way that you're setting your night up, right? Because typically your day starts the day before, right? Or the night before. So a lot of it has to do with what you've done throughout that day and up to that point when it's ready for you to go to sleep so that you can wake up at the time that you want to wake up in, right? So if for you waking up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. makes more sense than waking up at 9 or 10, right? Then you have to establish a plan that is going to allow you to execute that habit. And we're going to dive deeper into what that looks like. Will habits limit you or expand you? This is a good question. And the reason I ask this question is because a lot of people think that structure is going to limit you, right? A lot of people think that, oh, well, if I set up a schedule or if I set up my power list or 5 critical tasks, I feel like I'm not going to allow myself the free flowing freedom that I want. And all of that is bullshit, because actually structure provides you more freedom, right? So here, what I ended up doing is I put both, because some habits could limit you, right? It depends what habits you put into play that will determine its influence on you, right? So case in point, if I'm deciding to establish a habit of going to sleep at 9 p.m., that's going to be a positive habit depending on what my goals are and what that specific habit is going to allow me to achieve. Now, here's another habit, right? And this is one that a lot of people don't consciously think about. The other habit is watching TV, right? Or watching Netflix, or hanging out with friends, or going out for a drink at the bar with one of your boys, going on a date, playing video games. All of these things are habits. And that's I want to talk about all of it. I don't just want to talk about the specific thing of like, oh, waking up at this time and cold showers and this and that. No, I want to talk about everything, right? Because a lot of the times, the things that are keeping you away from establishing powerful habits are the other habits that you're laying on top of those powerful habits that you're not eligible to do those powerful habits. So if you're laying on top all these negative habits, and now your whole day is consumed by these habits that are not allowing you to find the time or to create the time for the habits that are actually going to propel you forward, is going to be very difficult for you to actually hit the ground running and get some grip, right? So we're going to talk about all of that as we dive deeper into this, guys. And save your questions for the end. If you guys have any questions, write them down. I would love to get into it with you and answer as many questions as possible. All right. What are your habits, and which of those habits would you like to change or improve? How does this change register with your overarching goal? So I'm gonna wait for that other slide. So what are your habits, and which of those habits would you like to change or improve? Now, the reason why this question is important is because you have to first identify what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? So you have to first identify what are your habits, good and bad. If you notice yourself staying up late, ask yourself, all right, within 3 hours before I go to sleep, what am I normally doing within these 3 hours, right? And start to identify the pattern. Are you scrolling on Instagram? Are you watching YouTube videos? Are you priming yourself to stay up longer because of the light that you're allowing into your eyes, right? Or the heavy meal that you're eating towards the end of the day? These are certain things that could perhaps prohibit you from going to sleep at a certain time if waking up early is something that you're planning to achieve, right? So with that specific habit, you have to keep in mind, what are you doing the night before, right? Same thing with wanting to dress better, right? And I'll get into that with you guys as well. I've established a sequence of what somebody will do if they want to dress better, if they want to start dressing sharper or be more intentional with their look. I've established a sequence in a further slide that I'm happy to go over with you guys. Now, how does this change register with your overarching goal? What are these things going to do for you? Because here's the thing. If you've been planning on going to sleep early, for example, why are you planning on going to sleep early? Why are you planning on waking up early? Why are you planning on going to the gym? Why does this change register with your overarching goal? Why is it important? You must be capable of connecting the dots as to how this action, this step, is going to move you closer to that thing, right? So here's a picture of my kitchen, right? And I took this picture because I personally struggle with keeping my kitchen organized, right? And the reason why I wanted to share that with you guys is because in my house is just me and my brother, right? So two brothers. Normally the business gets done in the kitchen. So when my brother comes in, he has a box full of files, right? Because he's a surveyor, and he's just picking up files, putting them all over the place, and just getting work done. And we're all getting paid, right? We're all making money. So and here's the thing too, because there's been an attack on certain habits online, right? Where a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, don't listen to Jordan Peterson, for example. You don't have to have a clean room to be successful, or you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. for you to actually make $1 million," right? Guys like Hermosi, a lot of guys are saying a variety of different things. And listen, a lot of what they're saying, there is truth to it. You don't necessarily have to have you can say an organized kitchen to make $10,000 a month. You don't have to, right? However, for me, when I walk into my house and my kitchen is disorganized, it makes me feel a certain type of way. Immediately my mind is a little bit more cluttered because the way that you establish your environment and where you lay your head is also going to be a representation of your mind. So for me, when I see my kitchen, if it's messy, if it's disorganized, I'm automatically going to feel some type of way, and it's going to be an unnecessary storage that I'm storing certain things into my mind, where now I'm limiting my capacity of my performance, right? Also, that's, you could say, a little bit more philosophical, or a little bit more, you can say, psychological. But another thing too is I like to have guests in my house, right? So I've had the experience of when I would have a guest come in and then I realized that my fucking house is a mess. So I'm just like, fuck, I have a 5,000 square feet house, right? So it's not easy to clean. So if my house is a mess and I have I have certain people coming over, now I'm stuffing things in closets. I'm just doing what I have to do. And I remember those times and I'm just like, man, I don't like fucking doing this shit because number one, it's not a representation of me, right? I'm somebody that's sharp, I'm somebody that's polished, and how you do one thing is how you do everything. So it's funny how we can spend 4 to 5 minutes just talking about a goddamn kitchen, but it's true, right? So for me, I like to keep my kitchen organized. I like to keep my room organized. I like to keep my house organized. It makes me flow throughout the day a lot better and have less to think about, which automatically makes me perform better, which in the long run will make me more money, right? So that's the bigger picture. That's how I'm tying everything in. There's certain things that as they compound will be beneficial for you in a variety of different ways, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be directly money into your bank account, but it could be an impression that you can make on somebody that comes over to your house, which then leads you to landing a business deal, right? And it's the same thing with waking up earlier, right? It's not so much about, oh, I just got to wake up at 5 a.m. to emulate all of these success gurus that are waking up at 3 and waking up at 4 and just shouting from the top of a roof, hey, this is what you got to do. No, ask yourself, how will this actually progressively make me better? All right, well, if I wake up at 5, then that means I could get an hour in at the gym. So let's say I'm back by 6:30. That'll give me about another hour to cook a meal, get changed, get dressed for success, and start my calls at 8. All right, perfect. If I'm dressed and I'm sharp and I've already got my coffee in, and if you're having breakfast, you're having a meal in, depending on what your diet plan is, you already got that in. Perfect. You feel sharp, you feel good mentally, physically, you feel powerful. You tap in 8 a.m. You're on the phones by 11. You've done so much in the beginning of the day, more than a lot of people, right? Where it would make you feel a certain way. Now, again, this is based on my career path. For me, I find the best results in real estate to cold call at 8 a.m. That's the best results I found is calling at 8 a.m. Now, I'm in the state of New York, right? If you're a wholesaler and you're calling all around the world, and you live in California, let's say, for example, you could get up at 5 a.m. and start making calls, right? Why? Because in Eastern Standard Time, it's going to be 8 a.m., right? So there's just a variety of things that you can do. And I recommend that you plan your habits around the things that you want to accomplish in life, right? So yeah, that's my clean kitchen story. Next. Why did I develop a habit of having a disorganized kitchen? Perfect. So let me go ahead and break this down for you guys because I think that this is equally important. Limiting belief. So here's my limiting belief. I don't have time to keep my kitchen organized, right? I make too much money. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I don't have time for doing anything. Okay, cool. That's my limiting belief, which is false, right? I do have time for it. I just have to create it, right? Reality. I was prioritizing. Here's what I was prioritizing. I was prioritizing making calls, business meetings, watching movies, hanging out with friends, dates with women, and late nights out. So the reality is obviously I'm not doing all these things at once, but I would recall certain time periods where my kitchen was messy and I was like, you know what? I'll leave it for later. Let me just watch this fucking movie on this, or let me, Spartan 300 or whatever, right? Let me watch this. Let me watch this YouTube video. Let me do that, whatever. Or let me hang out with this friend that I haven't seen in a while. And then I come back, my kitchen is still dirty. There'll be a point in my time where I'll be like, all right, well, I have to make time for it and just fucking do it. And it will take me longer than I would like to, right? Which is the reality is I was prioritizing certain things. Now, there are positive things on this list and there are negative things on this list, which I want you guys to take note of. Not necessarily negative, but things that shouldn't necessarily take priority over others, right? The next thing, calibration, right? So this is a 3 to 4 step thing, right? Calibration. I get to watch movies, hang out with friends, date women, and nights out after my kitchen is clean, right? So this is how I calibrate it. Now, notice what I did here because this is very important. So what I did here is I stated what the limiting belief was. The limiting belief was I don't have time to keep my kitchen organized. It's a limiting belief. It's bullshit. Okay, reality, this is what I was prioritizing. I was prioritizing making calls, business meetings, watching movies, hanging out with friends. All right, cool. So now let me establish a hierarchy, right? Let me establish a hierarchy. All right. So I will place, let's say, business meetings first, making calls second. Let's see, fucking hanging out with friends after that, dates with women, late nights out, and watching movies, let's just say, right? So that's my hierarchy in regards to how I'm prioritizing it, right? Now I'm gonna calibrate it. All right, well, I'm still gonna do my business meetings, obviously, because I gotta pay the fucking mortgage. And I gotta make my calls because that's what allows me to have the business meetings. Okay, so maybe making calls should be the first one. I don't know. But so cool. It's between those two. Those are the two main ones, making calls and business meetings. All right. So the rest, watching movies, hanging out with friends, dates with women, and late night out, I could still do that, but I get to do that. So I get to watch my movies, hang out with friends, date with women, etc. after my kitchen is clean. Okay, perfect. So now I'm establishing structure in my life. So now my mentality around it is, all right, I want to watch this show, or I want to go out, hang out with my friends, or I want to go on this date with this girl, but first I got to make sure that my kitchen is clean, right? And then I could do those things. Now the cool part is we've all heard you should allow yourself a reward as these things are getting done, right? So like if your kitchen is clean, what is the reward? Well, now I have a list of rewards that I can do. But here's the fun fact. When you start to establish multiple productive habits, you're probably not going to have a lot of time for all of these other things that are not going to take priority over improving your life, right? And then you'll get to pick and choose what actually makes sense for you and what doesn't. And then obviously the last thing is just follow through, right? So find out what the limiting belief is, right? So determine the limiting belief. What's reality, right? What's actually happening? Calibrate that and then follow through with it, right? And this is a format that you guys can use for the habits that you are trying to or not trying to, fuck that. For the habits that you're establishing, right? Cool. How to correct myself. Remain conscious. Why do you do what you do, and why are you doing what you are doing? So again, a lot of people go throughout their day without thinking about why they're doing what they're doing. And I think remaining conscious and being aware of the overarching goal is important. Now, when you're in it and you're making things happen, you're not really going to be thinking about all these other things. You're not going to be thinking about that supercar that you're going to get. You're not going to be thinking about the house. You're not going to be thinking about all these different things. Those thoughts and putting yourself and tapping into that state comes when you're in a moment of thinking that you need motivation, right? And this is where you allow yourself to find purpose. Possibly it's by, helping out your family. Possibly is because you want to give more to your community. Possibly is because you want to be a more respected individual when you walk into certain rooms. So there are certain habits like maybe going to the gym or working on your communication or how you dress that you want to work in that'll help you with those things, right? So you got to ask yourself, why do you do what you do, and why are you doing what you're doing? If you're watching a movie, why are you watching that movie? Is that going to be the best of your time at that specific moment? Is there anything else that you have to do that will allow you to move closer to the goals that you want? Why watch a fucking movie, right? Now, if you earned it, cool. The more aware you are, the more likely you are to make better decisions, right? So again, this also, I believe that this will also help you if you tie it into the other habits that you're saying are that you could say that are degenerating, right? So certain habits that are not necessarily helping you move closer to those goals, be aware of those habits and ask yourself, what are these habits getting me closer to? Right? What are those habits getting you closer to? What are the habits of you prioritizing a late night out with a friend for drinks? What is that gonna get you rather than you making sure that you plan your day for tomorrow, setting your clothes aside, making sure that you're structured and you're on top of your game with everything else, making sure that your leads are imported to your database and that you're ready to make calls as soon as you log in, right? Which are all positive habits that can reinforce you doing the habits that are going to make the real change in your life, right? The more aware you are, the more powerful you are, man. Awareness is key. You prioritize the things you do over the things you don't. So remember, all the things that you did at the end of the day and all the things you didn't get to do and ask yourself, what could I have done to be more optimal? Right? So again, you prioritize the things that you do over the things that you don't. So even if you're consciously now you're thinking about it, right? Well, I should make my calls because calls are going to get me more leads, and leads are going to lead more appointments, and appointments are going to lead more to listings, and listings are going to lead to more closings, right? Okay, so if I should prioritize that, then why the fuck am I on YouTube right now? Why the fuck am I scrolling right now? Why am I having a conversation with a friend that has nothing to do with the things that I'm supposed to be doing right now? Right? And at the end of the day, look back and reflect upon your day and look at all the things you did, and that's going to help you understand where you're slacking in, right? And I have something here, an exercise that I've done a few times to recalibrate myself and understand where my time is going. Create a note every 30 minutes to yourself from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep about what you've done within those 30-minute time gaps for a week, right? So for a whole week, record what you're doing every 30 minutes for the whole day for 1 week, and look at those habits every time. At the end of the day, look back into that page and ask yourself, what was productive, what wasn't productive? Why did I do this? Did I earn this reward? Did I earn this habit? Did I earn this specific thing, right, of leisure, right? And what this is going to help you do is this is going to help you become conscious as to why you're succeeding or why you're not succeeding. Habits that you can optimize, habits that you can improve, and habits that you can completely just eradicate and create better habits, right? So that's an exercise that I would recommend you do if you're a little bit, you could say, more on the unconscious side. You're not really sure what you're doing wrong. This is going to help you dig that up and bring it to the surface, right? Additional things you can do to prevent bad habits. Before doing the thing or habit that contradicts your goals, state out loud the crime you're about to commit. So if you're telling yourself, listen, I'm not going to have any more bacon, egg, and cheeses until I get a 6-pack, right? If you're about to have another bacon, egg, and cheese, the deli down the street from me has banging bacon, egg, and cheeses, right? So if you're about to eat that bacon, egg, and cheese, first, look at what you're about to do and be aware of the crime that you're about to commit, right? Second thing is, why are you doing it, right? So say these things out loud to yourself. I'm about to eat a bacon, egg, and cheese right now, even though it's against my diet. I'm doing it because I can't contain myself. I'm having a moment of weakness right now. I'm being a little bitch. So I might as well just have this bacon, egg, and cheese because this is going to satisfy the little bitch inside of me, right? So I'm going to allow myself to grow that entity and become weaker if I eat this bacon, egg, and cheese. Then you're going to be like, well, I don't know if I want to eat this bacon, egg, and cheese anymore, right? And that's the point. If you're saying that out loud, this is the way that I would communicate with myself, for example. So, I cuss, I keep it real with myself. This is just what it is, right? So that's how I talk to myself. And then what kind of person it makes you and how that action delays you from your goals. Well, eating this bacon, egg, and cheese is going to delay me maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe even further. If I keep doing this, this is going to make me into a person that's lazy, that can't keep his word. If you're saying all of this out loud before you eat the sandwich, you're probably just going to throw it out. You know what I mean? Or you're probably not going to get it. And that's the point, right? That's the point of this exercise. State it out loud what it is that you're about to do, why you're doing it, and what kind of person that will make you as soon as you do it, right? Because these are the things that are going to allow you to bring the unconscious to the conscious, and now it'll allow you to make the change. And that's the whole point. A lot of the negative things that we do are unconscious. And then we ask ourselves, well, why can't I change? Why am I not seeing results? It all has to do with your habits, all of it, right? I have a cigar here. Been talking for a long time. Additional, what do we have here? This is my reward for today, right? I've done a lot of things right today. Additional things you can do to prevent bad habits. Create an environment where it makes it difficult for you to do the degenerating habit or make the process more strenuous. Watching TV, if that's something that is a habit of yours, unplug your TV. If that doesn't work, put your TV in the fucking closet, right? If that doesn't work, get rid of your TV, right? And it's the same thing with anything else, right? What is distracting you from making the calls? Is it YouTube? All right, cool. Put a timer on your YouTube and make sure that you disable it within that specific time. If that doesn't work, because you can click ignore time and just keep using it, right? Then put your phone upstairs or put your phone in another room while you're making calls, right? And I make calls through my Google Voice, for example, so I don't really need my phone, right? Log out of your Messenger if you're on a MacBook, so you don't see messages coming in. Log out of your Facebook, log out of your Instagram, right? Put do not disturb on. Do all the things that's necessary for you to prevent the bad habit. That's the point. Create an environment. What will be the punishment for committing this negative habit, right? So what punishment will you place on yourself for not making the calls that you need to make? So if you're committing to yourself, I'm going to make calls from 8 to 11. If you don't do that, how are you going to punish yourself, right? Maybe 500 push-ups, maybe going out for a run, 4 miles, right? How are you going to punish yourself? Or maybe you like doing push-ups. Maybe that's not going to work. Maybe a monetary commitment may be a little bit more scarring for you, right? So have a partner with you, and then if you fuck up, give them $50. I used to have a problem with showing up late to the boxing gym, right? I would always fucking show up late to boxing, always. And it wouldn't be crazy late, but my coach always got on my ass for that, right? I would show up 5 minutes late, 2 minutes late, 3 minutes late. For him, on time is late, right? So even if it was just for 5 minutes, he would get on my ass. So I made a bet with him. I was like, hey, listen, anytime that I show up late, I'll give you $50. I stopped showing up late, right? I stopped showing up late because I didn't want to give that motherfucker $50, right? I'm like, yo, I want to use this $50 for me. So I started showing up on time. These are certain things that you can do to hold yourself accountable, right? Or another thing is, if you're in a group chat with friends and you guys are committing to certain things, post in that group chat. Anytime that you don't do something, record a video about it and talk to yourself exactly about how you feel and post it, right? Or post on social media that you're somebody that can't keep his word because you didn't wake up at a certain time, right? Or because you didn't make a certain call. Whatever it is, right? How are you going to punish yourself? The sooner you experience negative feedback from the habit you'd like to decommission, the better. Think about it like this. The stove is hot. You touch it immediately. The feedback is instant, right? If your feedback isn't instant on how that specific habit was negative and is not necessarily contributing to your goal, you're not going to get it, right? So whatever that punishment is, it would be best for you to experience it instantly, right? If you can't, for whatever reason, go on that 4 or 5 mile run at fucking 2 a.m. if that makes you feel better. Cool. How to reinforce positive habits. Think about what kind of man it makes you by doing such an empowering habit. Think about it. Think about the person you become by doing that habit. When you throw on that button-up shirt and you throw on that suit and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you feel different, right? When you made those calls and you knew you didn't really want to do it, you feel fulfilled, right? You're that guy that keeps his word, right? And therefore, nobody could ever disrespect you because you respect yourself. You respect your word. What you say is bond, right? And you're doing it. So think about what kind of a man it makes you by doing such an empowering habit. The millionaire isn't a millionaire because of the money that he has in his bank account. It's because of the habits that he was capable of establishing that created that lifestyle for him, right? Make it easy for you by walking in as prepared as you can into said habit. Attach a reward as a result of you successfully doing the habit. The sooner you experience positive feedback from the habit that you'd like to reinforce, the better, right? So the contrary of the last segment that we just went over, the sooner you experience the positive feedback from the habit that you'd like to reinforce, it's going to be the better, right? So attach a reward to the positive habit. Make it easy for you by walking in as prepared as possible. So what I mean by this is, let's say, for example, your problem is that you make the calls, but you know that you're supposed to be sending out mailers to these people after you make the calls, handwritten ones, and you just kind of just shove it to the side because it's not priority. Well, if it's something that's going to give you an edge and it's going to help you, and I'm only sharing this with you guys because I do that. I send out mailers to some people that I have interesting conversations with, right? We're in an era where it's competitive and you have to set yourself apart from everybody. So I go the extra mile to make sure that they know that my intentions are to help them. And I'm a hardworking person. I want to communicate work ethic with these people. So I want to write a handwritten letter to them. So what do? On my office, right? The day before, once I'm wrapped up on my office, I have the yellow sheets of paper, and I have my pink envelopes, right? Because I wanna be distinguished from everybody else. And I have my pen that I only use for handwritten letters. I have it all out on my desk, ready for me to write any letters that I need to write. So I don't have to think about where these things are. My environment is already primed for that, right? The laws of four behavior change. So this specific segment was inspired by a specific book. You guys may have read it, Atomic Habits. And I like the base that he used. So I wanted to go ahead and share it with you guys, right? Make it obvious. So this is a specific habit. Let's say, for example, for the person that wants to dress better, right? So make it obvious. How can I make it obvious? Pick out my outfit the night before and hang it up in my bathroom, right? So make it obvious. If this is the habit that I want to do, just all right, cool. I'm gonna walk into my closet. I'm gonna pick out all the things that I need, and I'm gonna put it in my bathroom. So as soon as I get out of the shower, I have all my stuff there, right? Make it attractive. How can I make it attractive? Buying clothes that fit me well and look nice, right? Nobody likes to put on clothes that don't fit them well, or clothes that don't necessarily make them look good. Or if they don't have any clothes at all, then it's not necessarily going to help you if you want to dress nicer, right? Get creative with the colors I wish to wear. So for me, I'm used to dressing a little bit above average, right? So something that I do to challenge myself is I like to pick certain colors even for my handkerchief, right? Or certain colors that I wish to communicate certain things with other people. So if I'm going to a business meeting, I typically like to wear a navy blue suit with a red tie, or if I don't have the red tie, I would put the red handkerchief in my pocket in the front, to give business vibes, right? Because that's the typical business attire. Depending on who I'm meeting with, will also determine how I'm going to wear that suit and wear the shirt underneath it. So I love this, right? So I get creative with the colors that I wear, with the accessories, with the watch, right? And with my overall message, with what I'm going to be communicating with the world after I throw this on. Make it easy. How can I make it easy? Taking it one step at a time. And man, I want to talk a little bit more about this specific segment right here. From remembering to lay out my socks to the entire outfit, right? So taking it one step at a time, I think speaks a lot of volume, right? There's so many people that want to be a millionaire by tomorrow, and it's just not going to fucking happen, bro. Like, it's not going to happen. You have to establish all the habits step by step, zoom out, understand the staircase, cool, but you're going to have to take it step by step. For you, with that specific habit, it could be laying out your socks. If it's too stressful for you to lay out your whole specific outfit the night before, lay out your socks. Start with that. I'm gonna lay out my socks, just my socks. I'm gonna lay out my underwear. I'm gonna lay out my pants. I'm gonna lay out and then little by little, you're gonna start to stack certain things on top of each other. But here's the key too, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. Once you start to take the smallest step towards that positive habit, it's going to develop a momentum, right? So if I lay out my socks, I'm probably going to be like, oh, well, I already laid out my socks, so I might as well also lay out my pants. And then now you're laying out your whole outfit, right? Before you know it. And it only took you like what, 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't take long, right? So even with the gym, same thing. Oh, well, you know what? I'm just gonna go in there and just do 5 minutes in the treadmill. I'm not, and then I'm gonna take it light. Every time I've said that to myself just to get my ass in the gym, I would end up having the most intense workout ever, right? Because you just have to get yourself to the gym. You just have to wake up, right? And there are certain things that you can do to make it easy, right? And I'm just laying this out for you guys so you can create that for whatever habit it is that you wish to establish, right? Make it satisfying. How can I make it satisfying? Well, if we're talking about this specific habit, looking in the mirror. Once you're dressed and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're dressed sharp, you feel good, your confidence is up, mentally you're sharper. You are embodying a specific archetype that is now allowing you to resonate further with the individual that wears those clothes, right? That presents himself in that manner, right? So looking in the mirror with this specific habit of, let's say laying out your clothes the night before is immediately going to be gratifying because you're going to feel amazing. Posting a picture on my story. If I look that good, you might see a picture on my story, right? So that's another thing. I may post a picture on my story. I may post a picture on the chat, whatever. Just do something that will make me feel better, right? Eating out. So because I look good, you know what? I might as well just have coffee at a cafe and eat out and maybe work a little bit more remote from there, right? Or I might want to show myself off a little bit more, right? So there are many ways that you can make it satisfying. And now you can attach this specific concept and this specific breakdown, the 4 laws of behavior change, to whatever habit you wish to establish. Next. All right. We are conditioned for instant gratification to be more important than delayed gratification. Now, I know this may sound interesting, right? We are conditioned for instant gratification to be more important than delayed gratification. And everybody's preaching, well, it's all about delayed gratification, right? It's not about, just having that one call and not being consistent. It's about what you do over a long period of time. And that is true. That is true. But we are conditioned for instant gratification. That's why we oftentimes find ourselves scrolling on TikTok and doing all these things that are not necessarily going to add up to anything meaningful over the long run because we're conditioned for instant gratification. Our psychology is something that it has been here before us, right? Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, however long we've been roaming this earth. So why is that? Not because of TikTok, not because of AI, and not because of post-nut clarity, because that will also, help you identify a lot of things, right? not because of those 3 things, but because of our ancestral experiences. What has worked for us in the past, we've predominantly valued immediate return experiences over delayed gratification due to our way of living for most of our human existence up to this time era of agricultural revolution, right? Which is where we figured out more, you can say, methodical ways of farming, and that's when certain things really started to develop for us, and we had a more, you could say, long-term vision as to how we were going to develop the landscape of our lives as human beings, right? Before, in the hunter-gatherer area, we just did things based on what we needed, right? If we were hungry, we would hunt. If we were tired, we would set up camp. If we were cold, we would set up a fire. Like, we were just doing things as we needed to do them for a majority of our existence as human beings. So that's why instant gratification has such a gravity and such a pull that it will basically pull us to the things that are more instantly gratifying and more pleasurable upfront than the things that are going to take time, like you building $1 million business, right? That's going to take time. So now, how do you outsmart your nature, right? How do you outsmart it? How can you outsmart your psychology? By coming up with systems which allow you to become more aware of the pleasures you gain by practicing the habits which yield you a better quality and more fulfilled life in the long run, right? So how are making these calls going to yield you a better quality of life, a more fulfilled life? How are making these calls going to help you with that, right? How can you make it more pleasurable to make these calls? Anytime you hit an appointment, what is something that you can do to make these calls more pleasurable? Or anytime you get a lead on the phone or you add somebody to your CRM, what is something that you can do to anchor the excitement that you also feel by growing your business, but also allowing yourself to experience more pleasure as you're doing it, right? Making it fun. This is something that is very important for all of us to take in. And for me, I mean, listen, I'll tell you guys straight up, I'm purpose driven, right? Like, if I have to do something, I fucking do it. It doesn't really take that much for me to get my ass going. Like, if I have to make calls a specific day, I have to fucking make calls. It's more about me being conscious and being self-aware of what I'm doing the night before and establishing the discipline of saying no, right? And you have to say no to people. You have to say no to all these other things that are going to take you away from the life that you want to live, because guess what? It's you that's going to experience those consequences, not anybody else. Everybody else is just living whatever life that they want to live, and they're mindlessly floating through life. That's why it's very important for you to surround yourself with more people that are holding themselves to a higher level of standard, right? If everybody in your office is whack, lazy, not really doing anything, and you're still in that office, you got to move out of that office if you want to be successful, right? You got to move into an office where there's people that are overachieving, right? That are making more calls than they're supposed to, that are doing that one more rep and that bench press once they feel maxed out, but they got to squeeze one more out, right? Because over the long haul, the more that you do that, the more you're going to be able to get done, right? One extra hour of cold call within 365 days, that's 365 hours, right? Additional of cold calling. That in and of itself will allow you to make more money, have more leads, build a better business, build a better reputation for yourself, because the more business that you have, and here's the thing, guys, it's not even about money. Cool, money's going to come. Of course, money is important. Money is actually one of the most important things that you can have. Money is very important. So I'm not one of those guys that is like, oh, it's not about money. Don't worry about money. You fucking should, you know, make money important. Of course, at the same time, it's about what it is that you're doing, right? Because money is just, it's just what happens when you do something very well, or when you solve a problem that pays, when you have a specific skill set that separates you from everybody else, and because of that you're earning most of the business. That's when that person becomes a millionaire or very successful individual in that specific business. But what about it is it that makes him successful in that business, right? And it's the step by step, right? It's not being in dreamland all the time and thinking to himself, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 25. And it's just like, bro, how are you going to do it? Right? Because I also had that belief when I was 16, 17, working at a pizzeria on the street, doing stupid shit. I did have the belief that I was going to be a millionaire before I was 25. Right now I'm 26, dude. I feel so old. It's funny because sometimes I forget I'm 26. And for me, for some of you guys are probably like, what the hell are you talking about, Jose? You're still fucking young. But for me, like, I started in the game when I was about 18. And for me, it's been all right, like, cool, making moves, doing this, doing that. Now, as I'm getting a little bit older, I also feel the pressure of having more receipts, having more things done, having more experiences, doing more things, because I'm going to be held at a higher standard, right? Being 26, being an older person than somebody that's 18, for example, I'm going to be held at a higher standard. I'm supposed to be more knowledgeable. I'm supposed to be smarter. I'm supposed to have more money. I'm supposed to live this whole life. Okay, well, if I am, these are the reasons why I am. And if I'm not, I must have a reason why I'm not, right? And if I'm not, then now I have to break down all the things that I have to do. And here's the thing, guys, over the long haul, there are certain people that start off very well and they're doing very good, but then they fall off. Why? Because they're not upkeeping these habits. They get soft, they experience a little bit of the life, and then they just give up, right? Oh, well, this, then they just, and it's not that they give up on becoming a billionaire, let's say, if they become a millionaire. No, is that they get distracted, right? They get distracted with the girls, they get distracted with the traveling, they get distracted with the parties, they get distracted with all the things that they could do now because they have a little bit of money, right? And you got to be careful with that, because that's a real thing, right? So you have to stay sharp, because over the long run, we're gonna all see, right? Like, I see some guys here, for example. Shout out to you, Andrew. Shout out to Johnny. Shout out to Steven, Alec, Manny, Albert, Justin, Zach. I mean, listen, we're all here, right? All of us. And in 5 years, do you think that I want to be the guy that you guys are looking at and saying, like, oh, bro, I remember when Jose had that house and was making that money and doing this and doing that, and then he fucking lost it all. Now he doesn't have shit. Like, I don't want to be that guy, right? I don't want to be that guy. So, and I really don't want to be that guy. So that's actually something that motivates me, right? Where I think about that, because I've seen some people fall off, right? Because they get lazy, because they get distracted. Again, they get too caught up in the pleasures that now their life can afford, and then they drop. That's why structure is so important. And also having a good environment around you is also very, very, very important, right? So think about that for you, right? If I see Drew in 5 minutes, in 5 years, I mean, And then in 5 years, you're still doing the same shit. I'm gonna be like, bro, what have you done in the last 5 years? You haven't done anything, right? You've stayed the same, which actually is worse. Or, damn, bro, like you got investments under you, you have a team, you have this, you have that, whatever it is that your goal is, because only you know that, right? You're gonna be able to see it 5 to 10 years from now, right? And maybe even sooner, because we've all been working on certain things. The point is I want to run into you guys on the street someday and know that you guys are more successful, right, in your life down the road, because you've applied really good habits and you stay disciplined, because this shit is not easy, right? It's not easy, and it's easier said than done. However, it doesn't have to be easy, right? It's about purpose. It's about why it's important for you to do it. For me, my family came here. Well, I would say my father came here to this country a lot earlier than I did, right? I came to this country when I was 7 years old. I live in New York, right? So I came to New York when I was 7 years old. And before that, I only got to see my father once a year, once or twice, or maybe 3 times a year at most. Why? Because he was here in this country fighting and working his ass off to get his family here, right? Now my two brothers are here, my mom is here, and he did his job, right? He did what he was supposed to do for his family. So for me, I feel like I have this opportunity where I owe him for that now, right? I owe him for that now, and the way that I can repay him back is by being the best that I can be, being as abundant as I can be, right? Giving back to the family from the fruits that I get to reap from all the things that I'm doing, right? So this is the importance. You have to be able to tie it all in with something that's important to you and something that's meaningful to you from within. I want the fucking cars. I want the house. I want all of it. I want everything, right? But there are certain things that are a little bit more embedded that really fucking get you going. And all this is going to do for you is it's going to make you feel and be more aware of what that is for you. Because again, once you're in the work, you're not even like, for me, talking for myself, when I'm working and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm not thinking about the cars. I'm not thinking about the house. I'm not thinking about the vacations. I mean, I don't even give a shit about vacation, but I'm not thinking about any of these things, right? All I'm thinking about is delivering the best product. Literally, that's all I'm thinking about. Delivering the best product. Anytime I meet with a client, I want to make sure that they leave that table with their lives changed. Wow, I met somebody that was very interesting today. He educated me on these things that I didn't know before. I trusted him. I feel like I established a relationship with somebody that I can call and ask any questions to. It would be actually beneficial for me to share more about what's happening in my life and what's happening in my business, because the more that I share with him, the more feedback that he can give me that can actually help me with my current situation. That's how I want my clients to feel. And I think that because of that, when I'm communicating with them, they really, really feel that, and they just divulge in everything that's going on in their life. Well, I have this that I'm doing, and my kids are moving out, so the house is just too big, and it's this and that, whatever the pain point is. It's a lot easier for them to tell you if they think that you're somebody that can actually help, right? So, and actually being able to help is, you got to be somebody that knows your shit, right? So know your shit, know your product, be up to date with everything that you're doing. And that's why it's important for you to establish these habits, because it's not going to be easy for you to stay up to date and be sharp if you have certain things that are weighing on you. If you have certain things that are taking up your time, that are not allowing you to get ahead, right? That are not allowing you to study more on your business, to network with more people, to expand your connections. All of these things are important, guys. Cool. See what else I got here. Wrapping up. All right. So wrapping up, here are some things I want you guys to keep in mind. What are your goals, right? Why are you doing the things that you're doing? Dig deeper than that, right? What's your purpose? What are you looking to establish, right? And even for me with the BFP, for example, like my overarching purpose is I want to create a community where men specifically could get together and talk about anything that they'd like, right? And then also a community where they genuinely feel like they're gaining value. I have so many ideas as to what I want to do for our members, right? And it's vast, right? It's vast. It's something that I massively want to continue to adopt and want to continue to give life to. And for me to be able to do that, I have to continue to be successful in the things that I'm doing, right? So this is a way even for me to put another thing on my shoulder that gives me that healthy pressure, that gives me that healthy stress, so that I can continue to grow into the size shoe that I'm fitting on my feet, right? And that's vast for me. Like, just think about that for a second, right? You have to be able to be somebody that is influential. You have to be able to communicate a certain type of way. You have to be able to present yourself a certain way. You have to be able to help yourself dramatically, right? And the way that you help yourself is by staying sharp and applying the habits. So do attach certain things to yourself that will make you better. Sign up for Toastmasters if you're having trouble with your speech, right? Or sign up for an event or a networking event or something that will allow you to get out of your comfort zone and fly out to another state and meet more people. Do something that just changes things up for you, right? Don't let yourself get so predictable, right? Because predictability is also yielding comfort. It's also yielding complacency. It also yields boredness, right? If you ever felt bored in your job or bored of making calls, it's because you've lost sight of the bigger picture. You're not improving. You're not consistently adding certain things into your business. You're not making it fun for yourself. If you have a team, right? Having team meetings or team parties, even, right? Anything, right? I remember the first time I threw a client appreciation, for example, guys, and it was fucking amazing. Like, seriously, I had about 15 clients show up to my house, and they've never seen a house like this. When I started selling real estate, let me get into this after. I'll get into this after because I really want to share that with you. That made me happy. So, what are your goals? Wrapping up, just keep this in mind. What are your goals? How are your habits today helping you get closer to those goals, right? How are you going to remain conscious of yourself, right? How are you going to remain conscious of yourself? Maybe you'll try that 30-minute exercise that I shared earlier today, right? What are the habits that you are going to change or improve? So, what are the habits that you're going to change? Make a list. All right, well, these habits are going to be productive, so I'll keep these here. These habits are not productive, so I got to swap these out. Or if I really enjoy smoking a cigar, then I'm gonna go ahead and attach a specific thing that I have to do to earn that cigar, right? So attach something to the things that you like and allow yourself to incorporate these habits, right? How do you plan to incorporate the four laws of behavior change to each habit, right? How are you plan on making it obvious? If you're gonna go for a run, maybe you should leave your shoes by the front door, right? If you want to make it easy for yourself, or let's say make it attractive for yourself, then go ahead and buy some nice shoes that you want to wear, right? So make it attractive, make it easy, right? And then the last one was make it satisfying, right? So how are you planning on making it satisfying? Again, with the whole dressing up example, I find it extremely satisfying to look at myself in the mirror once I'm suited and booted and say to myself, wow, man, you look like a well put together gentleman. You look like somebody that's serious for business. You look like somebody that keeps his word. You look like somebody that's very intellectual. You look like somebody that, like that's me looking at myself in the mirror, right? Positively affirming myself. And I could even take it a step deeper than that. I don't look like that person. I am that person, right? Boom. So that's one way that you can communicate with yourself a little bit more powerfully. What are the punishments or rewards for the habits you choose to practice, right? So we went over that. And then how will the next 12 months look like if you don't and if you do? How will the next 10 months look like? 12 months look like? How will they look like? If you don't do the calls or waking up at a certain time, or let's say, for example, because waking up at a certain time is kind of a habit for another habit, right? So if you're planning on waking up at 5, it's probably because you want to get to the gym by 6, let's say, right? So how is going to the gym going to for the next 12 months, right? Consistently 4 times a week, 5 times a week, 6 times a week, whatever you decide. How is that going to make you look in 12 months? How are you going to feel in 12 months? How are people going to treat you in 12 months? What are you going to learn in those 12 months? Who are you going to connect with at the gym within those 12 months? Same thing with the calls. If you're doing 3 hours a day minimum, connecting with, let's say, 10 people minimum, 20 people minimum, right? Even that in and of itself is better than trying to go for 100 contacts every day. Just do it once and never do it again, right? So again, start small. You're not in a race with all these motherfuckers, and believe me, you'll catch up to them if you can sustainably do the things that are right. And yeah, like I've passed people that were ahead of me because I was just sustainably doing the right things over and over and over again. Momentum. It's about the momentum, right? How will the next 12 months look like if you do, and how would it look like if you don't? Very, very important for you to understand these things. Start with small, manageable, and sustainable changes. Expand as you go. Perfect. I already touched on that, but start with small, manageable, and sustainable changes and expand as you go. If you're planning to wake up earlier and you've been waking up at 9, maybe going for 8:30 might be better. Maybe going out for 8 may be better. Maybe setting an alarm. Maybe it's the night before. That's the problem. So maybe setting an alarm. And this is something that I've done because for me, anytime that I wanted to wake up at a specific time, so let's say, for example, I want to wake up at 4:30. What I would do is I will set an alarm. And I recently started doing this because I was really bad with my sleep, and I would still show up to the fucking gym. I would get 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and I would still show up to the gym. Then I got injured, and then I realized that not sleeping was a big reason why I got injured. So now I take my sleep serious. So something that I do is I set up an alarm. All right, cool. My alarm will go off at 9. At 9 o'clock, I know it's time for me to get ready for bed. Right. Another thing that I do is I also have some kind of accountability. Right. So whether it's a phone call with a friend, for me, it's my brother. Me and my brother, we live together, right? So for me, it's my brother. If I'm up and he's sleeping, I wake his ass up. If he's up and I'm sleeping, he wakes my ass up, right? If in the gym, right? So there was a time where I was training somebody, and he would meet me there sharp at 5:30 a.m. That kept me sharp because I knew that if I didn't show up at 5:30, he's depending on me to train him. He's depending on me to help him get the results. What kind of a leader would I be if I'm not showing up at 5:30? Right? So these things keep me sharp. These things keep me going. You have to keep yourself sharp, and you have to place certain things that will allow you to be stressed. Like if you miss it, right? How can you increase the pain of not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing versus making it painful of doing those things that you know is going to get you close to your goals? Because that's why people don't do the things that they need to do, because they find it painful, right? Fuck that. It's more painful for you to look like a weak, spineless fool and for you to be broke than for you to actually do the things that you have to do. Right? Cool. That's pretty much it, guys. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and stop my screen share. I was gonna share that client appreciation event, and real briefly, guys, I'll just tell you, like, it was just the most amazing feeling ever to have all of my clients here. We walked around the new construction house that my brother and I are building, and I showed them everything, and just thank them for trusting in me, right? And for allowing me to deliver the results that I was capable of delivering. Obviously, they were happy if they showed up. And it's just imagine this, guys. I started in real estate, in my mother's fucking, not in her bedroom, but in her house. But I had a small ass 50 square feet, probably, if that, bedroom. Everything was crammed in together. My bed, my office, my desk, everything was crammed in together. And I just remembered working out of that home office in that small ass bedroom to then eventually moving up to my 1 bedroom apartment, and then eventually moving up to this house, right, which has 7 bedrooms and 4 full bathrooms on 2 acres. And then now I have this other property that my brother and I are building, which is a lot bigger than this one, with yeah, that one's going to be insane. It's going to have its own underground gym. It's going to have its own lounge. It's going to have its own rooftop with a hot tub at the top and a bar. Like, it's fucking crazy. Like, I'm telling you guys, this shit is crazy. What my brother and I are working on is out of this fucking world. But again, I wouldn't be able to get here if it wasn't for the habits. So I'll go ahead and open up the floor for questions. Anybody that has a question, just raise your hand. I'll go ahead and unmute you. Or anybody that has anything that they'd like to share, any acknowledgement, anything at all. If you found this helpful, I would welcome you to share your thoughts. If not, we'll go ahead and close this off. So I'll give it a minute while I light this cigar. If it's giving you trouble raising your hand, I'm gonna just see if I could. There we go. You should be able to unmute yourself now. So just go ahead and unmute if you have a question.
Jose, what's going on, brother?
What's up, man? Good to see you here, bro. Talk to me.
Good. Yeah, man. First of all, man, just give you flowers. Want to say thank you for opening this up. I know there's a ton of value in here, and I know everyone else here, I'm sure, would agree with that. Dude, really happy to see all that you're accomplishing, man. You know, talking about where you started at and like where you're at now, bro. It's always been a pleasure and an honor to be able to watch the journey and see like what you've transformed yourself into. Because I don't know how many people here know this, but I met Jose back in 2019. We were both young bucks at that time, still are. But now we got, you know, a couple scars to show, some battle wounds to be able to show for where we're at now in life. But yeah, man, I just want to first off just give you your flowers, bro. You've always been a stand-up dude, and your life's a reflection of that. You know, in the good book, it talks about, you know, judging a tree by its fruits, and you're a man who has many blessings around you. So it shows the type of person that you are. So I just want to give you those flowers, man.
Thank
Um,
Appreciate that.
yeah, of course, bro. The next part is right. So things are moving right now in real estate for me. We've had, you know, some brief conversations about where I'm at right now. Listing just hit the market on Friday. I got a new one hitting the market this week. Buyers closing this week. Got another buyer in a new build. Got him in a contract on a new build that'll close end of December, and we're just ramping up, right? So I'm really doing my best right now. I don't want to say I'm doing my best. I know that I'm leaving stuff on the table as far as effort. And I don't want to get too much into systems because I know that's not really what this is about right now, unless you're open to having that conversation. But as far as the habit and also the identity shift, right? Because who you are today isn't who you were last year or when I first met you, right? Um, that took a lot of time of discipline and consistent action. But when it came to, I guess, cultivating the identity and avoiding the imposter syndrome in a sense, right? Because if you're going for radical changes, and I know part of this right here, I was taking some notes, was to start with sustainable, easy changes or easy habits and then expand upon those. Was that the route that you took to ultimately get to where you're at now? And obviously this isn't your final form, it's constantly evolving, but I guess what I'm trying to say is when and how did that identity shift really start to mold and take place, and what do you think really kind of contributed to that, to help you start gaining those results? Because I've noticed in my own life too that in my younger years, I used to be a little bit more arrogant, a little bit more, I don't want to say cocky, but maybe like overly confident. And I
Yeah.
think over the years I've developed this identity of being a little bit more meek and humble in a sense, and not so much of thinking of thinking of myself less, but thinking less of my not no sorry, not thinking less of myself as an
Oh,
individual, but just
oh,
thinking of myself less,
yeah.
right?
Let me answer the question, just within the respect of the time and everything and
Sure,
everybody else.
sure.
But I'd like to answer that question, bro, because it was a couple of identity shifts, right? The first one was when I was on the street doing stupid shit, and I got robbed multiple times, and then it ended up getting me into certain uncomfortable situations where I got to a point in my life where it literally started being a dangerous lifestyle for me, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
you would probably not even recognize the Jose that used to live back in those days. But what changed things for me was those experiences that I've had where it was just like, all right, like future pacing what my life would look like. I'm probably going to end up dead or in jail if I keep going this path because of
Mm,
jealousy, envy. A lot of people just being jealous and envious out in the street is not even, it doesn't even have to be my fault. Just by me being in this environment, it attracts a lot of negativity. So
sure,
that
yeah.
in of itself kind of helped me make that identity shift. And then obviously having good people around me, like my brother. So my brother was the first person that was around me that offered me a job when I was transitioning from that
Yeah.
period. So he offered me a job and I committed myself to just, all right, like, cool. If I'm not going to be living that lifestyle, what do I do? Right. So something that for me was always captivating was real estate. Why? Because my oldest brother, Eric, he already had a two-family property. He understood the game. He put me onto bigger pockets. So I just became a fiend, bro. I became very focused. I would have my I dropped out of college. I was on my second semester. I was like, fuck college. I dropped out of college and I kept working at that job that my brother Kevin hooked me up with. And as I was working at that job, I would just do these main things, bro. I would just wake up early, hit the gym, be at work at 7:30 in the morning because that's when the job started, right? So I had to wake up early, 7:30 in the morning. It ended by 3:30, but I would always put in overtime. Always, bro. I would work very, very, very long weeks because I wanted to make as much money as possible. right? On top of that, while I was at work and I was driving around, I would listen to the Bigger Pockets podcast, right? Which I always talk about, like the things that I'm feeding my mind with, right? I would listen to the Bigger Pockets podcast. I would read audiobooks. Like one of the first few books that I've read was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Let me make my way inside real quick, guys, because it's starting to rain here. But Rich Dad Poor Dad was another book that I read. 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. Like that was, some of the beginning books that I read that just kind of primed my mind into what was real and what was out there, right? Hold on a second. Turn on these lights.
Cool.
There we go.
I'm curious, not to cut you off, but I'm getting like a bunch of showing scheduled for my listing right now, which is great.
There you go. So yeah, bro. That was one thing. Just putting myself in just making a decision for myself and also allowing life to hit me and learning
Sure.
from that. And then the next thing too was when I joined MS with BC, which you also know.
Yeah.
I remember traveling to California for the first time, and I've never did a trip like that. So for me, it was a huge pattern interrupt. I'm gonna be
Mm,
traveling by myself with somebody I just met in MS, which was Ronnie, by the way.
yeah.
So I'm traveling all the way to California,
Yeah.
and I don't know what the hell's gonna go down. I've never done this before. To me, a fucking stranger that I've just seen on YouTube, now maybe it's a little bit more relevant to do things like that. But for me, bro, like in those times, it was difficult, right? Making that
Right.
decision. But I did it because I knew that I had to put myself in an uncomfortable situation, right? So I did it. I put myself in that situation, and I knew that I had the mindset that once I touched base in Cali and I enter that room full of other entrepreneurs and other real estate agents, I'm going to talk to everybody. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to meet everybody. That was like my attitude in my mind. I don't know any of these people, so I don't care. I'm just going to talk, I know any of
Yeah.
these people, I'm going to ask questions. I'm just going to be me and provide value too. And that's something that I also learned from BC as well, which was just providing as much value as possible. Anytime I've gone to any of his events, I do my best to just pay it forward, provide value, talk good about him, kind of just like what you did with me. Things like that are similar, bro. Like I've seen a lot of similarities between us where you just want
Yeah.
to pay it back because you're just grateful to be around these people.
For
Now,
sure.
when I got back, the reason why I decided to move out was because I wanted to put myself in a more isolated environment where it was just I wasn't openly allowing, arguments, distractions, ways of speaking, way of communication, ways of thinking just
Yeah.
flow around me. So that was the next identity shift. A lot of these identity shifts have to do with me doing things that get me out of my comfort zone. Another
Yeah.
identity shift was when I got into dating and when I started being a little bit more proactive in that. So then I would go to more social events and social venues and start applying certain things that I wasn't used to doing, right? So just putting myself in those experiences, and I guess a belief that really helped me with just doing that was understanding that if the moment that I feel uncomfortable and the moment that I feel that feeling within, that's just like, all right, this is a little nerve-wracking, or I feel butterflies in my stomach, that's how I knew that I was in the right place.
Mm.
I can predate this to even track, bro. Oh my God, I got hurt bad in track. And what I mean by that is I used to be the fastest motherfucker growing up, right? Except for Steven's brother, right? Steven's here. His brother Janari was a fucking horse. That motherfucker ran fast, right? So we would always play manhunt. We would always do all these things. And I was like always there, right? Like he was the fastest. I was like always the second fastest. And then what happened in freshman year in high school, I ended up getting Lyme disease, right, on my knee. And that shit swelled up my knee. And obviously, once I recovered, like 3 weeks after, and I was released from the hospital, it wasn't really the same. I had to, work on that. So I decided to join track as a sophomore, and I was talking hella shit, bro. Hella shit. Why? Because I recalled when I was younger, I was like, yo, I was the fastest motherfucker on the block, right? I was talking hella shit as a sophomore. And then that first meet came, bro. I did horrible, bro. Horrible. I wasn't last, but I was in the back, bro. It was not
Yeah.
good. And that shit, it taught me a lot at the time. And when you're young and you learn these lessons, that's probably why certain people become a little bit more mature, a little bit more successful earlier on if they actually allow these lessons to teach them something. And I
Right.
think back at that, bro. Anytime that I went to the line, I felt a little bit uncomfortable because of that experience. But that
Right.
allowed me to push myself. And obviously my times got better. I became better. So I have all of these anchors that I carry with myself positively that I could tap into anytime that I'm in a moment where I feel that, even when I'm about to give a speech, for example, and I feel that, I'm just like, perfect. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Right. So
Got it.
do more of those things, bro, and you'll be good.
For sure. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. And if anyone else wants to jump in, feel free to, let me know. But recently I just went to Portugal for like 3 weeks. We did like a little family trip. Actually, before I get into that, this was actually what was on my mind first, as far as being uncomfortable, but then also making a wise decision, right? So right now I'm in between, like while we were on here, I was looking at apartments and stuff. And my girl and I, we were staying together for a little bit, but kind of a similar thing. Her and I, we separated for a little bit and we're kind of coming back together. But I'm now in an isolated environment, similar to like those reasons, right? I noticed that I needed to have this space for myself in order to grow, to not have any additional outside influences kind of infiltrating my mind or my energy or what I was trying to accomplish. So long story short, I moved to Wilton. My family, kind of similar to like how your older brother has, they have, the primary property and then they have a condominium there. And for there, I literally just pay for like utilities, right? I'm blessed in that regard. Now, there's the inconvenience of the distance of where it's at, but there's the convenience of how much money I'm able to keep my overhead very minimal at this point. But then there's also the aspect of fuck, I don't want to get comfortable and complacent of being here and knowing like, oh yeah, I only got to pay X amount, right?
Yeah.
Versus like, because there's also that pride aspect. Like I obviously feel this as a man too, where it's like I just want to have my actual own space, like not connected to family, nothing or nothing like that. But because of a little bit of a step back I had to take, especially in my business and in my relationship and my living situation, that right there is where I need to be at right now. But then it comes to the point of like, okay, if you can afford having your own space, do you do that? Or do you take the time now to just double down on my efforts in business to build up, more of a stable income in my closings? Because they haven't been super consistent. I will say that this year it hasn't been super consistent. I'm on like deal 8 or 9 or something like that, which isn't a lot. And take this opportunity to grow, to build the right habits, to stack up enough capital to where I'm not concerned if, let's say a month or 2 months goes by where deals don't close, I still have enough in reserves to be able to cover me,
Yeah.
or step out of that comfort zone.
1 second, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got the question. So here's what I'll say, bro. You obviously have to be strategic about every move that you make, right?
Right.
And yeah, I'm living in this house today. And yeah, there's a lot of people that are saying, especially in the sales industry, like push yourself, buy the car, buy the house, do this, do that. What I'll tell you, bro, is I believe even before I moved out on my own to that apartment, I already had a fourplex, you know? So
Yeah.
before I even moved out on my own, I already had a fourplex and I've already had, some flips under me and I was doing all right. Like I was doing okay. And then I just saw that for me, like with the sales, it's not as consistent as the investments that I have because motherfuckers got to pay rent every month, right?
Right. Right.
So I knew that I was going to keep growing that. I already had a system for that. I was doing very well in real estate. I was getting referred. I still am, right? A lot of referrals that I'm getting. I cold call, but I get a lot of referrals these days, right? So with that being said, I was already in a position where my income was a little bit more predictable.
Mm-hmm.
And either way, like would I have moved out earlier if I knew that if I didn't have that multifamily or if I didn't have those investments, I would say as long as I could afford it, probably. But you're in a position where you live by yourself already, right? I was living with my parents,
Yeah.
so yeah, bro. Like if you're living by yourself, just put in as much work as possible. The best advice that I could recommend to anybody is the advice that I took, and that is to put your money to work and buy some real estate, right? Buy some real estate, get some rental properties under your name, I mean, you know the game. You've wholesale deals. You've done flips. Maybe I'm not sure if you've done any flips,
Not any of my
uh,
personal ones. I would like to though.
but you've done wholesale deals. You've put listings on the map. You understand the market, and I'm gonna connect you with that other gentleman that I mentioned because he has deals too that he does every now and then. Like, bro, you gotta accumulate some assets. That's where I would position my mind if I were you, right? Just
Yeah,
accumulate more assets, and then once you have maybe like one multifamily or one asset under your belt, or maybe a little bit more established, then yeah, make the move. If you feel like you have to make the move because you're complacent, I mean, you could do it, but I'm just telling you like how I did it. You know what I mean?
yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. And like I said, just being strategic about it as well. Like if it's not hindering my growth in any type of way. If anything, it's really giving, like how you said, right? When you have too many things, especially in your environment or externally, that are taking up your capacity to kind of think, right? Because it's just taking up all that mental bandwidth. This is one of those things right now where I think I'm in like that pivotal space of growth. My business is starting to gain some momentum right now. And so being able to not have to think about that or be, I don't want to say concerned, but have that additional responsibility right now, it gives me more bandwidth and freedom to focus on these other things because, so
Yeah. And
um,
I would say to add on to that, bro, like if you have that flexibility now would be the time for you to invest more in you, bro.
yeah,
Now would be the time for you to go on that networking event and take that flight or buy that ticket or do whatever you have to do to continue to educate yourself and to continue to do more for yourself, right? Because if you have that, like utilize those resources to better yourself, right?
for
That's
sure.
what I would do if I were you because that's what I was doing, bro. Like there was a time where I fucking flew out. Like for me, that it was a lot, and it is a lot still. Like I think I flew out like 12 to 14 times that year, and I went to Miami a bunch of times. I went to Cali a bunch of times. I was spending like 2 grand a month probably, and not even with everything else, just 2 grand a month with this one thing where I was just flying for this workshop like every month. I just fly
Yeah,
to workshop to just be around somebody that it embodied all the shit that he was teaching, just so that I can pick up the things that he can't teach, the things that I gotta just be there to see him do. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
I would just fly out there to just see this guy and just see him in action and say, oh, okay, that's what he does. This is something that I can incorporate into my routine. Or I would just hold on a second. Or I would just see him out like, bro, you gotta be aware. That's why I was saying awareness is power. Like I remember going to that event with BC, and then we went out for like a dinner or something like that. It wasn't the event dinner. It was just like something else that, it was me, BC, Ronnie, and I think a couple more guys, but it was low key. And we went out to get some dinner, just something quick. And I just remembered his mannerisms of how he treated everybody and how he talked to them. And I kept that in mind, and then I applied it the next day because we met at the boxing gym, and next to the boxing gym there was a smoothie place, right? So I noticed that Brian kind of kept the conversation going a little bit more. He was more pleasant. He was more polite. He would say certain things to make them smile. So I tried it, right? And I got like a free bagel, right? So like
yeah,
when that happened, I was just like, holy shit, bro, this shit works, you
yeah,
know? So it's little things like that. And that goes back to the positive reinforcement, right? Or the reward. My reward immediately was a free bagel. So I was like,
right.
shit, this shit works. So like things like that, experiences like that, where it was indirect because I didn't necessarily pay for that. I paid to be in the event, but because I stuck around and I noticed all these little subtle things, I began to attach them to myself and become better, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, bro. I think in-person events or just being around people that are operating at a higher frequency or a higher level than you is super important because you, at least for me, I feel like I am aware in that sense. Like when I'm around other people that are high level individuals, whether it's their communication or their aura or their demeanor or their mannerisms or their skill sets, or even like, for jujitsu or boxing, like you get around somebody who's like really been boxing for like the last 10 years, I'm sure their aura and the way you see them do their technique is night and day from somebody who just walks in, obviously, right?
Right.
And so being around that, I feel like really helps you assimilate quickly if you can maintain that consciousness and awareness of picking up on these things. For example, like when I went to Portugal, I was actually in the Azores. I was in the Azores, which is the islands off the coast of Portugal where my family's from. But I took a 4-day solo trip to mainland Portugal. And dude, just the atmosphere and the environment and the people and the aura that was around, right? I knew what it felt like to be able to be attractive in those situations. For example, like when I went to go see this DJ, I went there solo, opened up this 4 set like as soon as we got there, rode with them on the bus, and then next thing you know, I'm talking to this other dude from Venezuela, introducing me to a group of like his 10 people, and like the vibe there of like how everyone's energy was just so open. I had never felt that before. I've been to like big events and stuff like that. And, where, it's music's playing and everyone's high vibes, but it was just something different about this energy and this atmosphere that was there that I was able to pick up on because it was a frequency I never felt before.
Yep.
And like the quality of people and conversations and aura was just different,
Yeah, it was a pattern interrupt. Yeah, thank you for
Big
sharing,
time.
brother. Thank you for sharing.
Of course, man.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Go ahead and unmute. Anything else that anybody would like to share? I'm going to give you guys one last call before I close up here. Steven, I think I saw you on mute for a second. I don't know if you still have something you'd like to share. If you do, please go ahead.
Well, actually, brother, you actually answered my question. I was just going to ask whether you think changing your environment plays a critical role in, cultivating positive habits or vice versa, cultivating negative habits. But I think you already answered that.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot of things that change the way that you see yourself. And then also, I like to say this as well, because Andrew talked a little bit about, you could say, more material things, right? Like experiencing a higher quality of life. I will say that when I copped the S5, because I had an A5 before that, when I copped the S5 and I would get into that car, I remember feeling a lot different. I remember taking myself a lot more serious. I remember thinking to myself, well, now I own this car that's, a little bit luxury, a little bit sporty. I feel like I belong more in this car than the A5 that I had, that I wanted to be conservative in. So I do see myself being a little bit more productive. I do see myself taking myself a little bit more serious. So there was certain improvements. It's just hard to measure that metric, right? So these are all things to keep in mind. Steven, I mean, you're doing well, bro, because you just recently joined the BFP. So there's been a lot of changes that you've already made in your life. Just continue to do that, continue to stay active in the chats, continue to share the things that you're doing. I always love to give feedback to the guys, and be around as often and as much as you can, right? That's something that I would very, very highly recommend for you, bro.
Absolutely, man. And I will be doing that a lot more now because I'm actually going to be in Rockland a lot more often. I'm going to be local now. So I'm going to be trying to, meet up with you guys, meet up for the social events, the
Yep.
networking events,
Yep.
all of that. You'll
Dope,
see
man.
me a lot more often now.
Awesome. Get ready to buy a suit, bro.
Yeah, man, I got to buy a suit
Yep.
for sure.
Cool.
Intrinsic value.
Intrinsic value.
That's right.
Intrinsic value.
Guys,
Something that you can't put a number on or measure or an aggregate of, but something that how it just adds value to yourself, right? Like for example, the S5. So you can't put a label on how it affects you, but it just does. There's
yeah,
just something about it that it does something for you in a positive or negative way, but in this case, positive.
100%. I like that you labeled that, actually, because I've been looking for a word to box that in with, right? And I find myself, even when I do have nights out, to have that intrinsic value because of the people that I surround myself with, right? So, guys, I'm gonna just go ahead and close it off here. It's 8. We've covered a lot of different things. I'm gonna go ahead and share the recording. I might actually put this up publicly. So if you've gathered any value from this, feel free to share it with anybody, right? My accounts, I believe, that are pretty well. I'm not gonna mention that here, but share it with everybody, or as many people as you possibly can. Sometimes social media tries to hide my messages because of certain controversial things I've said before, which I am not apologetic about. So share this if you found any value in it, any benefit, And if you have any additional questions, feel free to DM me. Feel free to reach out. If you're in the BFP, you know I'm here. Schedule a call with me or call me directly and apply as much as you fucking can because it's not just about reading the book. It's about applying it. All right. Take care, guys. Peace.